You're tuned in to the only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Check out the Israel Sports Radio store by clicking on the store tab on IsraelSportsRadio.com. Great items such as t-shirts, hats, books, and much, much more. Price does include shipping, and we do ship throughout the entire world. All major credit cards are accepted to make your shopping experience easy and convenient. So once again, click on the store tab on www.IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Connecticut School of Broadcasting founder Dick Robinson.
You know, the media business has changed a lot since we opened our doors in 1964. Now media content is everywhere. On air, online, on the go. More than ever, companies are looking for people to help drive this new media.
At Connecticut School of Broadcasting, you'll get hands-on training on the latest software and equipment in a matter of months, not years. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has placed thousands of grads in broadcast media careers.
It's all about versatility. You see, at a radio station, if you also know how to shoot, edit, and post videos, you become a pretty hot commodity. That's the training you get at Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Connecticut School of Broadcasting, with locations up and down the East Coast, from Massachusetts to Miami. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com. Connecticut School of Broadcasting, the nation's oldest and largest group of broadcast media schools, redefining training in radio, TV, and new media. Get trained. Get connected. 1-800-TV-RADIO.
Live from Studio C at the Cherry Hill campus for the Connecticut School of Broadcasting, it's Sports Talk with...
Down goes Frazier! He scores! High fly ball into right field. She is gone!
Welcome to Here on All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. As always, you can chime in on the conversation, 856-330-4749, or send me a tweet on Twitter at the YossiG, that's TheYossig, or see me on Facebook. Come check me out. Check out on Facebook.com and search for Sports Talk with. We got the Olympics are going on now, and I would say it's probably about another 3 or 4 days until this entire midwinter, once every 4 years, the 22nd Winter Olympiad comes to a close. Obviously, Sunday night, the big game between, or rather, I should say, for the gold medal match. But one of the things that I want to talk about happened about 2 days ago in the Olympics, and that, of course, is when you had one of the Russian skaters, Yulia Yavlikovska, I believe is how you pronounce her name, 15-year-old girl, and she skated with Team Russia in the team skate, and they won a gold medal mostly due to her perfect performance on the ice. That, of course, that perfect performance of, as you would say, the score, the music she was dancing to was from Schindler's List. And, of course, at the actual event, at the moment it occurred, most of the people in the crowd were from Russia or fans of Russia and may not have necessarily understood what the music was, just thought it was nice. Perhaps some of them, or many of them, knew it was from Schindler's List, but didn't think too much of it. Now, I will say, for myself, listening to the music, watching her perform, absolutely perfect in terms of the performance per the music that was played over the loudspeakers at the ice complex, at the ice skating rink. However, the question that I've heard a lot of people address is whether or not the musical choice was appropriate, or perhaps the musical choice was in bad taste, considering what World War II represented, who Oscar Schindler was, where a lot of the people a lot of the Jews, a lot of the gays, a lot of the Roma were taken from Russia, the greater USSR, parts of what is today Ukraine, Poland, all those areas, and were slaughtered and were killed. And here is a girl who is not Jewish, who is using the music musical score from this movie, Schindler's List, representing, the whole thing with Oskar Schindler and what he did, what he, represented for the, helping the Jews back in, during World War II to help them, survive and help them escape persecution. And she goes ahead and uses it for the gold medal, what eventually became the gold medal. Again, you want to get on the conversation, 856-330-4749, and no sooner do I bring up some controversy, the phone lines are starting to light up. So we're going to go right to the phones right now, and we have Lewis on his cell. Lewis, how are you?
Hey, doing great. Great to be back on the show, man. I really missed it. How you doing?
Yeah, thank God. Good. It's been a while since we have you on, so it's good to have you back. So I see here on the call screen it says you want to talk about this whole Oskar Schindler musical score. What's on your mind?
Yeah, well, that's for those who don't know, they're listening in. Basically, the Russian girl, about 15 years old, first name Yulia, last name I probably have to figure out how to pronounce that in this lifetime, but you can Google her. She won a gold at 15. She's the youngest figure skater in history to win a gold. Ironically, she beat Tara Lipinski's record, who's Jewish and from Tucson, Arizona. Of course, I'm from Arizona, so that was a little irony there. A lot of people are making a big deal about it because this girl, Yulia, is not Jewish, and she's not Israeli, and yet she did this dance, her routine, to the theme of Schindler's List.
So what do you think about it?
Carefully,
what do you think about the whole routine? What do you think about it?
I don't think it is so bad. I'll tell you why. Because if you notice, Yulia was wearing red, and in the movie Schindler's List, the whole movie is black and white except for the little red girl. That's the only time that we see color in the movie. And I think Yulia was trying to more promote that concept that people are, that, at the time when the Germans didn't think Jews were human beings, that the idea of the movie is like, this is a little child. And, Yulia is a little child. She's 15 years old. I think she was trying to make that correlation. I think she's trying to maybe identify with that human aspect. Either way, even if it wasn't good, it was not anti-Semitic. It wasn't like she wore a Nazi flag or did the canal or anything like that. So I think people got to give her a break. Also, 15 years old, it probably wasn't her idea on second thought. So even if it was bad, it was probably the management's idea. So I just think people make a little too much out of it.
No, like I was saying that, I of course totally agree. It's people are making a big deal. I think it's a lot of much ado about nothing, or much ado about very little, rather. And on that point, with regards to management, it was not her coaches. Actually, she came up with the idea. She watched the movie and she felt some sort of kinship, some sort of connection with that little girl in the red coat, I believe it was in the movie. And she felt she wanted to do something to kind of, I guess you can call it, commemorate the girl who eventually is killed by the Nazis in the movie, and bring some sort of awareness to what had occurred. I don't know if you can bring any more awareness to what had occurred and during the Holocaust, but nonetheless, and she wanted to do it. She picked the score, she picked the music. Her coach was not really so thrilled with it because she didn't know what type of choreographer would want to take this under her wing. And it took 2 or 3 choreographers to finally she convinced the one that she was using or used for that exact musical score and the dance that we saw that brought the Team Russia the gold medal, until finally it took a while because she was the one who came up with it. It was her idea, and no matter how much pushing and prodding her coach tried to convince her out of it, she was adamant and wanted to do it. So certainly was an interesting take on something that, of course, it's always going to be a little controversial when you have such touchy subjects like this. But in this specific case, I think it's actually a nice thing in a sense of what she did, because it gives credence, it gives a podium, a platform for which people who may not have known or understood the full scale, the full spectrum, especially considering this is the world stage. Everyone is watching. And when you take something like this, Schindler's List, many people know what it's about, Many people still don't know what Schindler's List, who Oskar Schindler was, and what his list was about. And you bring it, and suddenly there is this talk about it. There is this conversation, and I believe that she did a very admirable thing by choosing this specific movie score to skate. And winning a gold medal certainly doesn't hurt either.
Yeah, by the way, I mean, keep in mind, Schindler's List was made about 20 years ago. There's a whole new generation that's never seen the movie. They may have heard about it, but they've never seen it. And she's bringing awareness, and I think that's very good. If you talk about irony, the Summer Olympics back in 2012, there was a whole issue of were they going to give a moment of silence to the Israeli athletes that were killed in 1972 in Berlin. So
Munich.
It was kind of nice. That didn't happen. Bob Costas kind of did his own thing, but the official Olympics didn't do it. So it's kind of nice that someone, a 15-year-old girl, was able to have guts that other people who should have guts did not have.
Certainly was a very admirable thing, and something that a lot of people should take a lesson to and take a lesson from. Louis, it's always a pleasure to have you here on Sports Talk with the Sports Rabbi.
Sure. Be well.
All right, man. Take care. That was Louis chiming in about what he felt about this Oskar Schindler score. And certainly, when you look at the Olympics as a whole, and he mentioned Bob Costas, who had his own tribute, if you may, for the 40th anniversary of what was the Munich Games in 1972, when the International Olympic Committee refused to do anything. And talking about Bob Costas, and when you look at him, when you saw him the first couple of days at the Olympics, you saw a guy who really looked like he was hurting. I mean, he had one droopy eye, his eyes were red, and then, what a lot of people thought was pink eye moved to a second eye. Turns out it was just, it was like a virus of some sort that just needed to run its course. And once it ran its course, and he's now back, he's doing the NBC stuff, and it's great to see him back, to be quite honest, because he's a good man and definitely one of the better broadcasters out there. That's certainly Sports Talk with the Sports Rabbi here on All Noise Radio. When you want to talk about the Olympics, the Winter Olympics especially, the big thing that always pops up is the NHL and the conundrums of when you have professional hockey players playing in the Olympics, the NHL gains nothing, the Olympics gains everything, and you may have a few players coming back to their teams post the Olympics not being able to play because they are injured at the Olympics. Larger rinks, larger skating surfaces, and it's another 2 weeks of playing. And even if a player does not necessarily come back injured right after the Olympics, immediately after the Olympics, there is always the possibility, the inevitability of wear and tear towards the end of the season or into the playoffs, because when the first round of the playoffs is going to be starting, that would, on a normal year, be the Stanley Cup. And you're thinking about it, some of these players will be playing a full 2 weeks more than they would on a normal year. And it makes you wonder almost what the NHL is going to do going forward, because we've seen already in these Olympics, Henrik Zetterberg, the captain for Team Sweden, he was out after the first game in these Olympics, and he's going to be out for he's not going to be back. He's not going to be ready for the regular season once it recommences with Detroit. He's going to be out for a little bit. And John Tavares, the New York Islanders star player who many saw as the catalyst for the team going forward, the team being better, and he himself growing in his role and growing in his experience. He is out for the rest of the season after suffering a torn MCL a couple days ago for Team Canada when they edged Latvia 2-1 to propel them into tomorrow's semifinal game against the United States. So with that said, with that kind of in what we have, when you look at everything, it kind of makes you wonder, will the NHL bring their players, allow their players to go back to the Olympics going forward. There's certainly positivity from it. You have players being able to play in these games, a lot of camaraderie, a lot of gamesmanship, a lot of national pride, country representing. And yet, on the other hand, you have the owners, the league, worrying about the product that will be delivered once these players return, either in tip-top shape or less thereof. And when you look at what the Olympics always has, there's always a key guy, player or two, who comes back after the games, either worn out physically, drained emotionally, or literally injured and cannot place on skates and play on the ice. So with that said, I think it will come down later this year. The Board of Governors will meet and they will decide going forward whether the 1998 to 2014 Nagano through Sochi, whether that is going to be the only run the NHL will have in the Olympics, or they will stay together as one going forward. You're listening to Sports Talk with us here on All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Don't go anywhere, because when I come back, I will have my picks for the semifinal matchups to expect in the Winter Olympics. Don't go anywhere.
It's been 48 years. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has helped place thousands of people, just like you, in exciting careers in radio, television, and the new media. At Connecticut School of Broadcasting, our hands-on approach is different. It's designed to have you spend less time in the classroom and more time in the studios. From the first day, you'll work with state-of-the-art equipment. Learn by doing from our team of industry professionals who come from their studios to ours. The best part about it, you'll learn it all in a matter of months, not years. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has a network of 12 campuses from Massachusetts to Miami. Remember, it's never too late to love what you do. So do what I did. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO. Step into the fast-paced world of the broadcast media. Day and evening classes begin soon. Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Get trained and get connected now. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com.
Your computer is blowing up to the sounds of All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Welcome back to Sports All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. As always, you can chime in 856-330-4749. Send me a tweet at the Yossi G, THEYOSSIG, or find me on Facebook, facebook.com, and search for Sports Talk. The hockey games in Sochi have been pretty good. I mean, quite frankly, when you look at all the players who have participated from the NHL, from the KHL, from the local European leagues, everybody who has participated in Sochi has played pretty darn well, if you ask me. And the final four teams that are left, now, I picked before the Olympics started, before the hockey games actually started, I picked the U.S., Canada, Sweden, and Russia to finish in the top four, but I picked Russia as being the one without a medal. So technically I'm still right, and I had thought that maybe you could have Slovakia or Finland to crack the top four, and I also scored on that, as Finland is going to be playing against Sweden for the right for a European team, and the US and Canada playing one another for the North American right to play against the Europeans in the gold medal game to be held on Sunday. With that said, when you break down the teams, when you break down everything that everybody has to offer, the Swedes have been playing pretty well without their captain, Henrik Zetterberg, to be there to anchor them. They've been playing pretty good. Henrik Lundqvist, the goalie, has been playing really well the entire games thus far. And when you also look at some of the other guys on the Swedish team, the way they've been playing, the way that Daniel Sedin has been playing without his twin brother Henrik, the way that everybody's rallied around the cause that Henrik Zetterberg has also been out with an injury for the rest of the game since after the first game they played. Overall, this team has what it takes to make it to the gold medal. They're the number one seeded team in the world, with other guys outside of just those who are injured. When you look at the Finns, Teemu Selanne, forever and a day, seems to pull the clock back. Father Time has nothing on Teemu. It always seems like he keeps on redefining the term Finnish Flash, that being his nickname, of course. And they have probably the best backstopper in Sochi, Tuukka Rask. The Finns certainly are very capable, and certainly may just very well steal this game. But at the end of the day, I feel that Sweden's team is too powerful, has too much depth to it for the Finnish team, for the Finnish squad to overcome. Yes, they did surprise Russia, but at the end of the day, who really was that surprised that the Russians would falter on a $51 billion stage in their home country, the world to see them, but yet they cannot deliver, they wilt, they fail, they crumble under the pressure that the Russians. But I find that Sweden will probably take it to the Finns and beat them 4-2 to bring them to the gold medal game against either the U.S. or Canada. When you look at the Canadian-American game, there are a couple of storylines that jump out in front of me. You have John Tavares' injury, how that will affect the team. Sidney Crosby, will this become finally his breakout game? Because remember, in 2010, Crosby also was not really on the scoring sheet much until his golden goal in overtime in the gold medal match. So a lot of people tend to forget that, and they tend to forgive Sidney for not playing on top of his game the entire tournament because, well, technically he did score when it counted the most. The question with this game is, will he finally bring all his marbles to the table now that it's for the right to play for a repeat for another gold medal? Will this be Sidney Crosby's breakout game? And of course, the U.S., under their coach Dan Bylsma, has been playing a very wide open style the entire tournament. When you consider some of the other teams they've played against, it's not surprising. But Canada has a very sound defensive team and is very good and probably has the deepest roster. It's like a fantasy owner's team. When you look at the Canadian squad, it's everybody who is anybody in the NHL is on that team. And the question, of course, is what will the U.S. team do? Will they continue to play this wide-open style that has caused for a lot of breaks, a lot of 2-on-1s, 3-on-2s, and that sort? Or will they go more conservative against a very sound Canadian team? When you look at the players' breakdown, you have a key matchups I find is going to be, for the U.S., the key player is going to be Paul Stastny. He's going to be tasked with keeping Sidney Crosby in check the entire game. And that will, of course, render whether the Canadians will score and win or whether they will be going for bronze on Saturday, on Shabbos. And what Stastny has that he brings is grit. He's been in that big moment before. He knows how to play against some of the bigger guys, some of the bigger names in the sport, if you may. And I believe he'll be able to do the job. The other one to keep an eye out on is Jonathan Toews against a physical U.S. defense. Jonathan Toews can play. We know he can play with the best of them. We know he is that good because he has 2 cups to prove it. But Jonathan Toews, when he's knocked around by bigger, meaner opponents, he tends to sometime mentally check out of a game for a period, for a time span, and that is something the U.S. can take very much advantage of if Jonathan Toews is not in it 110% for 100% of the game. When you look at the goalies, Carey Price, starting goalie for the Canadians, Jonathan Quick, starting goalie for the Americans. Price has a .98 goals against average, and part of that is because he hasn't had to face that many shots. The Canadian defense has been very good. The other thing is again, for the Americans, they know Carey Price is a good goalie, and he has less than a goal per game goals against average. The U.S. needs to set screens up in front of him, put bodies in the crease in order to beat him. If you put guys in front of him and he can't see the puck, he's not going to be able to save it because he cannot guide his hands. He cannot guide his glove. He can't guide his blocker. He cannot guide his legs where the puck is and where he should position himself. It's a guessing game. As Muhammad Ali once eloquently put it, how he once said it in reference to George Foreman. He said, I'm going to float like a butterfly and sting like a bee because George can hit what his eyes cannot see. And that's what it is with the Americans when you look at what they have to do in front of Carey Price. They have to create traffic and wreak havoc in the crease in order to make him uncomfortable. For Jonathan Quick, the key for Canada is not to allow Quick to get into an early groove. They have to make him extremely uncomfortable in the crease, pepper him with shots, send guys to the net, maybe knock him off his game a little bit because he's going to be tough to beat once he gets into a groove. He's gone to conference finals. He's won a Stanley Cup. This guy has been tried and tested in the most difficult of circumstances in the ice sport. Think about it like a pitcher. A really good pitcher, not necessarily finesse. Think of like Greg Maddux. Once he got going, it was very difficult to hit him. Once he got into a groove, it was very difficult to take him apart. Once he was on his game, he likely was going to win that game. The same thing can be said for Jonathan Quick, that once he gets into a groove, he's going to be tough to beat. And that's the key for Canada, is they cannot allow Quick to get into a groove, because if they do, he will be very, very unrelenting with goals, and they will be very few and far between for Canada. And the prediction for this game is Canada will not repeat their feat in 2010 in Vancouver. There's too many stars on the Canadian team, but only one puck to go around. The team has also seemed like they're too robotic, almost emotionless hockey that they've been playing. They look at the game, I mean, they barely beat the Latvians. They had to eke out a 2-1 victory. And this is Latvia. It's not a powerhouse like Sweden. It's not a dark horse team like Finland. It's Latvia. And they barely won. They barely found themselves in this position in the semifinals against the U.S. So unless they start getting more emotions on the ice, unless they start talking to one another, looking like they're having fun, it looks like it's a chore out there for the Canadians. It looks like they are having a difficult problem on the ice. It seems that goals are too few because there's not a lot of communication. There's not a lot of emotion in their play. In order for Canada to have a chance, they must be more fluid in their game. They must play with more vigor. I don't think that will happen. I don't see it happening. Obviously, against the U.S., it's a U.S.-Canada. There's always that rivalry. There's always that matchup. And there, of course, there's the last Winter Olympics with what happened between both countries, between both hockey teams. That said, and everything can change once the puck drops at noon tomorrow. But as I can call it right now, as I see it, Canada will not repeat because they're too robotic and they play emotionless hockey, and they don't have those grinders that you need in order to dig the pucks out in the corner. They don't have guys who are willing to sacrifice their body for the greater good, literally in this case, of the nation. The U.S. has those muckers. They have those grinders that are needed to win, and I feel that the U.S. will avenge their 2010 overtime loss gold medal game to the Canadians. They will beat Canada 3-2 and head to the finals against Sweden for a showdown for New York Ranger fans who will love to see Ryan Callahan and Ryan McDonough going up against Henrik Lundqvist on the Swedish side. I think it will be a phenomenal game either way. Both games, actually. Finland, Sweden, USA, Canada. great times, great hockey. This is what the Olympics is all about. And it's even going to be sweeter because I don't think that this will ever happen again. I do not feel the NHL is going to keep the Olympics, to allow their players to go to the Olympics without some sort of compromise happening in contracts, things like that. But as the NHL playing in the Olympics as we know it right now, I feel its days are numbered. And these types of games, with the hype, with the players, the build-up, all of that won't happen again. So make sure that you're sitting in front of your TV, on your computer, you're watching that game when these games come, because it will be something you will never see again. Sports Talk with us, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. When I come back, we'll delve into some hot stove topics and, of course, the NBA trade deadline. It finished today. Do you know where your favorite team's players, where they ended up, who your favorite team may have gone? Don't go anywhere. All that and more when I come back. I'm Yossi Goldstein with your half past the hour All Noise Radio Sports Update. With the NBA trade deadline coming and going, the 76ers seem to be the team to beat as they dealt Spencer Hawes to Cleveland for a pair of second-rounders and also got another pair of second-rounders from Washington and Denver as being a player in the three-team deal. Right before the trade deadline passed us by, the 76ers also claimed Danny Granger from the Pacers in exchange for Evan Turner and Lavoy Allen. The Nets also cleared some space, dealing Jason Terry and Reggie Evans of Sacramento for Marcus Thornton, and the hope in Brooklyn is that Thornton can reclaim his scoring touch that has decreased in recent years with the Kings. On the Olympic ice, the U.S. women's hockey team lost a heartbreaker to the Canadians 3-2 in overtime in the gold medal game after being up 2-0 with just under 3.5 to go in the third period. The U.S. and Canadian men will face one another tomorrow at noon for the opportunity to play in the men's gold medal match on Sunday, and the Americans have revenge on their mind after losing to the Canadians back in Vancouver in 2010. This sports update has been brought to you by Chabad Packer, where all your travel questions are answered. Visit ChabadPacker.com to get started on your next trip down the street or across the globe. That's CHABAD, Packer like the backpack.com.
Honey, again you're sitting here sulking?
I hate my job and I don't know what to do to change it.
Get off the couch and go check out the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
The Connecticut School of Broadcasting? What's that? The Connecticut School of Broadcasting offers a career and lifestyle change through a broadcasting experience you won't ever forget. Log on to GoCSB.com to find out how a career in broadcasting is for you and not just the people you see on TV or hear on the radio. CSB focuses on many aspects of real-world broadcasting, and their knowledgeable instructors teach you through a hands-on approach so you're in the studio in no time. To find out how CSB can help you work in an industry you love, call 1-800-TV-RADIO or check us out online at GoCSB.com. Why work 50 weeks a year for a 2-week vacation when you can enjoy your job every day? Don't just sit there. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com. Thanks, CSB.
All Noise Radio. The noise you can't ignore.
Welcome back to this radio powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. As always, 856-330-4749, or you can hit me up on Twitter at TheYossig, TheYossig, or send me a message on Facebook, Facebook.com, and search for Sports Talk. And I'm getting a couple comments here over during the commercial break in anticipation of the hot stove topics. And some of the audience wants to know what I feel is going to be with the new Yankees that have been acquired. So we'll start off the top of the bat with Brian McCann. Now remember, this is a guy who has decent power, hit .256 last year with 33 extra base hits and 20 home runs. He's a really, really good defensive catcher that has sorely been missed in New York. And since Jorge Posada retired, the Yankees have not had a catcher with the caliber of both the defense and offensive firepower that McCann does bring to the plate. Jacoby Ellsbury, I see being really good, especially with his speed that he has on the base paths when he's healthy. Batted just under 300 last year and was caught stealing only 4 times last year. Only 4 times out of the 56 tries that he had, and he can play better than average center field. The question mark, of course, as the aforementioned, health. Can he stay healthy? Will he stay healthy? What happens, not if, but unfortunately, when he goes down with an injury, what will the Yankees do then? Of course, the guy kind of on the outside looking in for the outfield with the welcoming in, if you may, of Jacoby Ellsbury is Brett Gardner. He goes back to the corner outfield spot after his breakout year last year in 2013 when Curtis Granderson, who's now with the Mets, went down with an injury in spring training. And Carlos Beltran also is going to be a really good fit in New York. He's aging, but he can still play well, he can still hit solidly. And when you have these guys, you have Gardner, Ellsbury, and Beltran all in the outfield, it certainly shores up a question mark, a big question mark with the Yankees. And Gardner, even though he does go back to left field, does go back to the corner, and is not patrolling center field. Nonetheless, between Ellsbury and Gardner, it seems like you really only need those two guys in the outfield because of all the room that they can patrol and cover out on their own. The question with Gardner, though, is what spot will he bat? Is he going to be first? Is he going to be ninth? Likely he's going to end up being on the back end of the lineup because even, you have Ellsbury will lead off, Jeter will bat second, and you go up and down the lineup with who the Yankees have, and you leave Gardner there at the back end. It still allows for the possibility of some good speed to start perhaps a third inning or a second inning, something along those lines, and really up and down the lineup, it's great to have speed, and Gardner will certainly bring that to the plate. Carlos Beltran, like I said, very good offseason signing for the Yankees. Probably one of the best defensive outfields with Beltran now that the Yankees have in the entire baseball. Like I said, Ellsbury in center, less pressure, therefore, on Gardner to perform both in center because he'll be in left field and also as a leadoff hitter because that slot will likely be taken by Ellsbury once the final roster is made up. When you look at the whole infield situation, the Yankees hope that the captain in his final season with the Yankees will give them more than 17 games at shortstop this year. They also hope that he will be all that he can be and will come back from the injury that he had last year and kind of revisit some of the glory years, the glory Jeter years that the Yankees fans have known him to have and known him to bring. The Yankees also hope that Jeter will solidify the questionable left side of the infield. Now, with A-Rod out for the entire season with his suspension, the Yankees are left with a hole at third that they hope will be filled with either most likely it's going to be filled with Kelly Johnson. And when you look at that, A-Rod is going to have a year to reinvent himself, if you may. So this way he can one day be standing at a podium in Cooperstown and delivering a speech. He'll play nice. He'll come back next year. He'll try to be better than ever, but likely that he'll just keep crumbling and keep falling. But who knows? That's next year. We're dealing with what we have right now. I expect Kelly Johnson to win the starting job at third come opening day. The biggest ushering this season, this offseason rather, has no doubt been Masahiro Tanaka. $155 million, $20 million posting fee, $175 for him in total. He rents a jet, for bloody Pete's sake, to come to bring himself to spring training, a 787 Dreamliner from Japan, coming with him, his wife, and their pet toy poodle. That's an entrance. And that's the number 3 pitcher on the team. I always said that, yeah, he does bring a lot to the table in terms of age. He's only 25. He went perfect in terms of win-loss record last year in the Japan League. 24-0, a .127 ERA. His Ks to walks is a little more than 7.5 to just under 1.5 last year. But when you look at what the Yankees did, $155 million on, it's essentially a gamble because it's an unknown arm, and in Major League Baseball, usually that is bad baseball. Throwing money to the unknown, because he's never thrown in Major League Baseball. He's played against lesser talent in Japan. And when you look at it from a baseball perspective, it's not a good signing. It's something the Yankees had to do because they still have to compete and they have to get Yankees fans to sit their keisters in their seats and fill the stadium and buy jerseys and all of that stuff. So I understand the Yankees have to do it. But from a baseball perspective, it's still a bad deal. You're throwing a lot of money towards or at someone who has yet to prove anything in baseball. Remember, for every Yu Darvish, there's a Kagawa, there's a Daisuke Matsuzaka, there's a Hideki Irabu. The question with Tanaka is, where will he fit in terms of all the other Japanese pitching products that have come over and come across the Pacific to play in the U.S.? Where will his legacy lead him? When you talk about business perspective, that's really the baseball perspective. Business perspective, it's a phenomenal deal because it's a $175 million investment for the Yankees for an international TV contract with Japan. Merchandise sales, you have Hiroki Kuroda, Ichiro Suzuki, and Masahiro Tanaka all on one team. It's like the Japanese trifecta juggernaut, and it's the New York Yankees playing in the Big Apple in New York, where everything is just larger than life, in the Empire State. It's the perfect storm for the Yankees and the Japanese television chieftains to get together and make this deal happen, make a TV deals and things like that. The YES Network is going to benefit. The Yankees will benefit monetarily. And from a business perspective, Mr. Steinbrenner, George Oliva Shalom, is certainly smiling down from his peaceful place somewhere in the netherworld and is saying to the Yankees, saying to his son, that's a very good job. Brian Cashman, A1 right there for getting Masahiro Tanaka into pinstripes. The big question with the Yankees is going to be their closer. The closer position is something the Yankees had not had to worry about since 1997, 1996 really, even with John Wetland. It's something that the Yankees took for granted since the mid-90s with Mariano Rivera. David Robertson has big shoes to fill with Mo being retired, and he knows he cannot fill those shoes. But knowing and translating that into actuality and realizing are two different things. Once Robertson realizes, the sooner Robertson realizes that he cannot fill the Mariano shoes, the better it will be. Once the fans also realize that Robertson cannot fill Mariano's shoes, the better it will be for everyone. Because Robertson, he can pitch. We know that. And we know that he can deal okay with pressure. But the fans and Robertson, everybody has to understand that, yes, you strive for perfection, but you deal with inequity at the same time. Not every closer coming to the Yankees, not every closer in baseball is like Mariano Rivera. Once you understand that, it will be good all around. Robertson, I think, will be fine. He'll blow a few games like any other closer in baseball this year. He'll get his feet wet. He'll get himself ready. He'll be fine. It'll be okay. The Yankees fans just have to understand that David Robertson is David Robertson. Mariano Rivera was Mariano Rivera. Going across town with the Mets, I know I was also, while I'm reading this, off the top of my head, I'm actually reading some of these tweets that I'm getting. This one's coming out from Mark in Queens. He wants to know about the Mets and what to expect from Travis d'Arnaud. And I look at this year as being a breakout year for him, for d'Arnaud, because he had a less than stellar play last year after his August call-up with the Mets. But he learned the hard way what it means to play in majors, and he has a whole offseason to study up on the veteran pitchers that the Mets have, on their pitching habits, what they like, and also the opponents, the opposing players, where they are weak, where they are strong, things like that. A couple of changes in his stance and in his swing, and I'm certainly going to go with Terry Collins, their manager for the Mets, with his assessment of Darnaud that he has lightning in his hands. I think a little tweak here, a little tweak there, and you're looking at a I don't want to say an MVP year for Darnaud, but certainly a breakout year for him. The Mets really, when you look at first base, Lucas Duda is the rightful guy to be there, even if he doesn't have a good spring training. And Ike Davis, who is there in Port St. Lucie right now, even if he has a good spring training, I still think that Davis is going to try to get his spot back at first, but I really think that Duda is the guy for them. And when you look at what the Mets have done, they brought in Curtis Granderson. He certainly helps out to anchor the outfield. And when you look at their rotation, it's either going to be for the fifth starter, John Lannon, who's a career 4+ ERA, but he's relatively young as well, or Daisuke Matsuzaka, who signed on a minor league deal, and that, of course, is going to be figured out now during spring training. They're both competing with prospects Rafael Montero and Jacob deGrom for the final roster spot, and it'll be interesting to see who gets to join the Dylan G's of the world and bring the bacon home, the not-so-kosher bacon home, as they say in English. The Mets also are going to, they also look pretty good with their closer, Bobby Parnell, and, of course, with Kyle Farnsworth, who's going to replace LaTroy Hawkins as the veteran leader in the bullpen. You can never underestimate the value of a veteran in the bullpen, especially with a lot of the young guys that the Mets have and a lot of the negativity that has been surrounding the team for the last couple of years. The key acquisition that they had, of course, like I mentioned, Curtis Granderson. He's going to replicate and is going to replace Marlon Byrd's numbers and his departure from last year. Byrd hit 21 home runs, 71 RBIs in 117 games, and I think he'll have a real big impact on the team, as well as also Bartolo Colon. He's only on the Mets, of course, because Matt Harvey's injury. He was out for the entire 2014. Don't forget, Colon is old, he's heavy, and he has a history of performance-enhancing drug usage going against him, but he's a crafty and wily veteran. He won 18 games last year in Oakland. He was an all-star 2013, and he brings a solid, at worst, extremely potent, at best, veteran presence to the young pitching staff that the Mets have. He can offer a lot of insight to them, and he certainly is going to bode well for the Mets in their bullpen with their starting rotation. Other free agents that are interesting to see what's going to happen is, of course, Irvin Santana still has not been signed by anyone. Of course, the issue is because Kansas City gave him a $14.1 million qualifying offer, and that means that if you match that, you have to give up a draft pick, and that really is what's scaring a lot of people away. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Santana. I actually think it's going to end up in Baltimore because the Orioles have essentially struck out in free agency and must add someone to bolster their rotation. And I think that Santana, even though he did have about 3.25 ERA last year, he's a workhorse, over 200 innings pitched. He's somebody you can give the ball to and know that he'll go 7-8 innings, night in, night out. With that said, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Nelson Cruz, although I think he would have a good landing spot in Seattle to recover from his 15-game PED suspension because it's quieter in Seattle. The fans are not as rabid about baseball as they are, say, about football or baseball as they are elsewhere. And Seattle also, don't forget, they signed Fernando Rodney to be the late innings guy and starter. They have Felix Hernandez, Hisashi Iwakuma, and, of course, Robinson Cano leading the way. It will be a nice fit for Cruz to kind of insert himself as a go-to guy in the outfield, and there's also other star players on the team, and he's not the only guy. Certainly will be interesting to see what happens from there. When I return from this quick commercial break, I will bring to you my take on the NBA trade deadline. What happened today? What is going to be really, really cool to see as we go forward? And, of course, a little bit of an interesting tidbit on the potentiality for what is March Madness. You're listening to Sports Talk with Howard by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
You know, our jobs occupy more than half our waking hours. Shouldn't we be doing something we love? Call Connecticut School of Broadcasting at 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com. Since 1964, Connecticut School of Broadcasting, with a network of 12 campuses from Massachusetts to Miami, has helped place thousands of grads as DJs, sportscasters, entertainment reporters, behind the scenes in audio and video production, every aspect of the broadcast media. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has trained men and women of all ages and backgrounds in a matter of months, not years. Learn by doing from area radio and TV pros. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com. Remember, it's never too late to love what you do. Day and evening classes begin soon. Get trained. Get connected now.
Your computer is blowing up to the sounds of All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
In this context, there's no disrespect, so when I bust my rhyme, you break your necks. We got 5 minutes for us to disconnect from all intellect and let the rhythm affect us to lose our inhibition. Follow your intuition.
Welcome back, Sports Talk with the Sports Rabbi here on All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. As always, 856-330-4749, or chime in on Twitter at the Yossi G, TheYossig, or on Facebook, facebook.com, and search for Sports Talk with the Sports Rabbi. Some interesting tidbits, of course. We all know that with the NBA trade deadline now having come and gone past us by 3 p.m. earlier today, it was done. And a lot of things that happened in the local area, of course, the Brooklyn Nets trading Jason Terry and Reggie Evans to Sacramento in exchange for Marcus Thornton. The Nets send away 2 little-used, aging veteran players for a younger guy who they hope can rediscover his scoring touch. Terry, only 4.5 points per game on 36% shooting, and Evans really did not click with Coach Jason Kidd, and Kidd used him really sparingly and only played him in 30 of the 51 games the Nets have had already this year. Thornton, on the other hand, is only 26 years old. He was benched because defensive-minded coach Michael Malone really doesn't have much of a use for him on the court with the Kings. He only started 26 of the 46 games that he's played with the Kings this year, to go along with 8.3 points per game and just over 2.5 rebounds per game, after he averaged 18.5 points per game the last 2 seasons. So this trade really was for everyone's benefit. The Nets get aging, really expensive contracts off their books and bring in a guy who they hope can back up Deron Williams and really be a force there when the time comes and when he's needed. The 76ers really are the ones who made the most noise out of everyone today. I mean, really, they go ahead, they trade Spencer Hawes to the Cleveland Cavaliers for 2 second-round picks, and they also get Earl Clark, who's a really solid, could be a really solid backup point guard, and they also bring in Henry Sims. Both are expiring contracts, $4.5 million for Clark next year, and Sims gets a little over $900,000. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, because the 76ers may need to bring on those contracts in order to get above the cap floor. Really, I don't see it being a problem if you keep Clark. $4.5 million, and he's a pretty solid backup. So really smart for the 76ers to do that. And then you think things are done with the 76ers, but they say, no way, man. They also acquire Eric Maynor and another deuce of second-round draft picks in a 3-team deal with the Wizards and Nuggets. They get 1 this year from the Wizards, that being a second-round draft pick, and 1 next year from the Nuggets. And it'll be interesting to see how they go about this year's draft now that they have this chock full of they have first-round draft picks. Now they have a lot of second-round draft picks. Do they package some of those draft picks and then use them to get someone else's first round? Do they trade up? It'll be interesting to see. Do they keep all of them? Do they add players? Sam Hinkie really did himself a lot of favors today by doing this. And then right by the trade deadline, right by 3 p.m., they put through the paperwork that brings Danny Granger over to Philadelphia from the Indiana Pacers and sends Lavoy Allen and Evan Turner to Indiana, to the Pacers, and it'll seemingly it'll be an obvious thing there now that Evan Turner, it was up in the air, would he resign with Philadelphia after this year? Would the Philadelphia 76ers even want a guy like Evan Turner on their team? He's a guy of the skill set. You can draft it again in the draft. You don't need him for that expensive amount of money that he would cost you. Now that he's Indiana, most likely he'll stay with the Pacers, but the 76ers certainly are not concerned with that anymore. They got Danny Granger. He had a lot of good seasons in the past, certainly a veteran presence who can add a lot to the team, to a young team, and especially once you go through the draft and get, at least at this point, you figure the 76ers will have at least half of those draft picks that they have right now. You will be adding a lot of young talent, and they will need guidance. They will need mentorship. They will need veterans showing them the way, showing them how the NBA conducts itself, showing how you conduct yourself as a matter of business on the NBA basketball court, on the hardwood. And certainly this trade, right by the trade deadline, right up against the horn, right up by the clock, was a very swift, deft, and cunning move by Sam Hinkie to bring Granger onto the Philadelphia roster. And you know, when you talk about rosters, you talk about a lot of teams now with the March Madness really around the corner. Syracuse lost to Boston College last night. They're still the number one team in the country, but they're no longer undefeated. They've been playing really, really well. C.J. Fair is playing incredible. Jim Boeheim, the coach, is doing a masterful job guiding his team through all sorts of trouble. And even right now at this point, okay, you know, they lost one game in overtime as well to Boston College. But overall, they've been playing phenomenal ball and likely going to be the outright favorite to win the tournament once it begins the first week in March. When you look at other teams as possibilities to challenge the Syracuse Orange for the top spot, or rather for the championship, I should say, not necessarily the top spot, because you have Arizona's playing really well, Wichita State's still playing incredible, the Shockers shocking everyone, Villanova a little shaky of late, Duke's playing hot the last couple of games, but I look at Kentucky, Julius Randle. The team can make a lot of noise in the tournament. Randall, James Young, they continue to play very well. They have continued to play well all season. And Randall really has showed his readiness for the NBA and the 2014 draft. You have John Calipari, the head coach, the Wildcats for Kentucky. They're hoping to win their second title in 3 years. And I really think that this year they will have a very, very good shot of doing that, because of the talent and the belief that they have in themselves, that they can beat anyone, they can compete with anyone. It certainly is something to watch out for if you are their opponents in the tournament in March Madness. My Final Four dark horse is SMU, Southern Methodist, led by the great, the one, Larry Brown, Hall of Fame head coach. They cracked the top 25 for the first time since the mid-'80s. It's really all thanks to Larry Brown. He's turned a doormat of a basketball team into, dare I say, borderline on a hotbed, at least in the last 2 years. It's a very deep team in college basketball right now. You have 10 players averaging over 12 minutes a game, and Illinois State transfer Nick Moore really has blossomed into a top point guard with SMU. He's averaging just under 14 points per game. Look for the Mustangs really to continue along this path and to really, challenge and try to be that Cinderella team once March Madness comes along. Oklahoma State, really, it's interesting to see how they've kind of responded to the whole Marcus Smart thing, going after the Texas Tech fan. But that's all, kind of in the wayside, and they're looking forward to the future, to what the tournament has to offer, and they hope that they'll be able to continue in positivity. That's all for this show. Sports Talks powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Don't forget tomorrow, U.S.-Canada. It'll be an awesome game for the right to go to the gold medal match. Thanks to everybody who participated in the show, callers, Facebook, Twitter, everything. Stay awesome out there. I'll be back next week.
All Noise Radio. Powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. All Noise Radio is an internet radio station that's fully produced by graduates of the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. From modern rock to old school hip hop, country to classical, news, talk, sports, and more. It's the noise you can't ignore. Log on to allnoiseradio.com. Fire up the station. Find out more about your favorite jocks. Get the latest CSB news and more. Plus, you can take All Noise Radio with you on the go for free. Just download the Live 365 app to your iPhone, iPod Touch, or BlackBerry and search All Noise Radio. Check out tomorrow's broadcasters today at allnoiseradio.com. Powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. All Noise Radio. The noise you can't ignore.